You're listening to Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast for and by Rockies fans on Rocky Mountain Rooftop. Thank you for joining us as we discuss all things baseball and Colorado Rockies.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast, part of the Rocky Mountain Rooftop Network, a proud affiliate of the Fans First Sports Network. I am your host, Skyler Timmons. Joined here, once again, it's Evan Lang.
Ahoy hoy.
Ahoy hoy.
Ahoy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you have a call. Is it about my cube?
Is it about my cube? But welcome here. It's been a wild month of May. We were just talking about before we started, it felt like a very long month of baseball for the Colorado Rockies as we record this on June 1st. And as of after the game on June 1st, the Rockies are 9-50. We'll talk more about that later in the show, recapping. But first off here, it's just a long month.
It really did feel like a long month, especially for the Rockies. And a lot happened in this month that I think made it feel long. You had it's hard to believe that, the firing of Bud Black was only like 2.5 weeks ago at this point. And, I was talking with some friends and fellow fans about it. And it's like, wow, that triple play happened this year. And it feels like so long ago.
It really does. A very long time ago. And so much of this stuff, I don't know, just the games and just where the team's at. No, I forget. The days just seem to blend together at this point. Just a long month when you're not a good team.
And it's not like the games have been particularly slow. The games have, if anything, been speeding by because the offense is non-existent.
Yeah, no, we've seen like both aspects of it. Of pitching has been good, pitching has been bad. Offense has pretty much been bad the entire time, but we saw some inklings of a huge offensive explosion against the Arizona Diamondbacks. We got 4 wins this month, or 4 or 5 wins this month, which is sad to say, but it's did not look good for a lot of the time, and so it all just sort of blends together with all the roster shuffling, which we'll get into more later here in the show. But sitting at 9-50, Evan, we're still the only team without 10 wins, first team to reach 50 losses before reaching 10 wins. That is the worst start to a season in Major League Baseball history. And we're not just talking modern era. We're talking pre-modern era. We're talking about guys that likely experienced the Civil War in some aspect, or just the years, the Reconstruction era, the Gilded Age, all that stuff before automobiles.
Where baseball players had names like Slappy Nine Pants McGillicuddy.
Yeah.
And we'd already reached the point where the Rockies had the worst 50-game start in the modern era of baseball. And were just behind the 1895 Louisville Colonels in terms of the worst start through 50 games. And now we keep trudging along, and it just feels like every game, every week, there's some new dubious history being made by this organization.
Yeah, it puts a lot of things into question. Who in their right mind would let Bill Schmidt or anybody whose job is secure after this season ends? No, who can survive this type of thing? No, it's been awful. And, the month of May didn't help. Had, around 29 consecutive games against teams over 500. So the Rockies played a lot of good teams. But at this point, who isn't a good team when the Rockies are facing them?
Yeah, when you're playing the Rockies, everybody's a good team.
Yeah.
Like, the Rockies are about to start a 3-game series against the Miami Marlins, who are, on paper, a bad/mediocre team.
Remember what they did to us last year in Miami?
Exactly. And they have 15 more wins than the Rockies do.
Mm-hmm. And they're a team that's been mismanaged for years and just in disarray and all these things. And yet you're still not confident. If you're a fan of the Colorado Rockies, you're not confident going into that series in Miami. They were confident last year, maybe a little confident. But at this point, who can you be confident against when you're at this point in the season? You're halfway to 100 losses after 2 months into the season. 2 months. You're halfway to 100 losses.
I believe the Rockies could technically be mathematically eliminated from playoff contention before the All-Star break, if I'm doing my math correctly. And like, you compare us to last year's worst ever team in baseball, the Chicago White Sox, and they're just as bad as they were last year, but they get to wipe the sweat off their brows and be like, phew, at least we're not those guys, because they have twice as many wins as the Rockies do.
Yeah.
We have we've set the MLB record for most consecutive series losses with 22 dating back to last season.
They've been swept 10 times this season, and they're on yet another 8-game losing streak, which is their 4th such streak of the season. Everybody else in Major League Baseball has combined for 3. That's 29 other teams.
And the Rockies also have only won back-to-back games once.
I bet the Padres and the Giants feel real stupid now.
The Rockies are really bad. And we're at the point where it's not even, you cannot even expect the Rockies to luck into a win.
Yeah.
Like, it's nice when it happens. That win against the Yankees last weekend was a lot of fun, but that it was luck more than anything else. And, you know, when we came into this series against the Mets, a whole lot of Mets fans online going, oh, we're going to embarrass ourselves and the Rockies are going to win or something. And I said straight out the gate, no, you won't. Like, something has to go terribly wrong for the Rockies to win a baseball game.
Yeah, everything has to go perfectly right. Of offense is getting the timely hits, your pitching is excellent, your bullpen locks it down, and they're playing impeccable defense.
And even then, the Rockies will still only score like 3 runs.
Exactly. That's everything going right for the Rockies. You know, the pitching staff has to basically be perfect. And unfortunately, that's just not the way baseball works. And it's felt like, you know, in what's already a long season, you know, the 2 months plus change because of starting at the end of March for some weird reason. All that, you know, 2 months and some change, it's already felt like a very long season because the losses wear on you. 50 losses. You look at it and you're like, there's only 9 wins. We've only won 9 god dang win games.
Like, it seems mathematically impossible.
Yeah, it feels absurd that in this era that a team could be doing that. Because even last year's White Sox were doing better at this point.
Yeah.
Than the Rockies were.
Can you guess how many times the Rockies have scored double-digit runs?
It's a very, very few.
3 times. Just thrice. Whereas...
And how many of those games were at Coors Field?
2.
No, there you go.
And poor Antonio Sensatela has more pitcher losses than the Rockies have wins. How does that happen?
It happens when your offense cannot hit the ball in any sort of capacity. They don't hit for home runs. They can't hit in the clutch. Nobody's even sniffing 200. Or hitting 300. It's not good, Evan.
Yeah, the Rockies are the worst offense in baseball, and nobody is really doing well. Brenton Doyle is really struggling at the plate. Ezekiel Tovar and Hunter Goodman are probably our two best hitters right now, and they've gone pretty quiet over the last few games. Same with Jordan Beck. At least Ezekiel Tovar hit that home run. But, looking at today's game, all of the offense from the Rockies came from Tyler Freeman and Orlando Arcia.
Mm-hmm.
What? Excuse me, what? And it's frustrating because I still stand by what we said last week, is that we are seeing better baseball from the Rockies. We are. Since Warren Schaefer took over, they have played better baseball. But it's still not good enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I made this joke in our Purple Rose Slack, our fellows over at purpleroad.com. Be sure to go support all of our homies there, which includes us. But I made the joke that the Rockies are now Star Wars prequels bad. They're still bad, but there's good things in there that you can appreciate, you can like. They were Star Wars sequels bad. Since it's just a jumbled mess, maybe one or two things you can like, but otherwise it's kind of disjointed, just a disaster, and does not work out very well.
Yeah, the Rockies went from unwatchably bad to watchably bad. Like the games are watchable now.
Yeah,
but they're still bad, and you still expect to lose.
There's points in the game where you can feel hope because they are closer games. And it's like 6 of their last 7 games they have lost by 2 runs or less. So there's competitiveness in there, and a lot of that is thanks to some good pitching. You're getting good starting or capable performances on the mound, serviceable enough, aside from Senzatella's batting practice debuts. But you're getting good performances in there, serviceable enough. That would be perfectly fine if the offense could hit the broadside of a barn. But unfortunately, that's not the case. And so you're left with a bad team.
It's so frustrating because the pitchers, and I wrote about this on Purple Row last week, is Kyle Freeland gets a lot of grief. He's not been particularly amazing this year, and sometimes his temper gets the better of him, and that rubs people the wrong way. But he is getting no support. The Rockies pitchers are getting no support. There's no run support. The defense is bad. Just, you can go out there and throw a pretty darn good game, and that's what most of this pitching staff has been doing. Like Carson Palmquist was pretty solid today through 4 2/3 innings. Kyle Freeland was pretty solid the other day. The pitching for the most part has been totally fine, but totally fine is not good enough when you can't score runs, and that has to put an enormous amount of pressure on the backs of the pitching staff.
Mm-hmm. The only team, now they've surpassed us. The Pittsburgh Pirates have now scored 10 more runs than the Colorado Rockies, as have the Kansas City Royals. And how many wins do the Pirates have this season?
22 or 23, I think.
They have 22 wins. Yes, they're currently winning 4-1 over the Padres at time of recording.
Yeah, like it's shocking how much worse the Rockies are than the really bad teams, because plenty of these basement dwellers right now are teams that we expect to be in the basement. The White Sox, the Athletics, the Marlins, the Pirates. But then you've got, surprise teams like the Orioles. And all of those teams have at least twice as many wins as the Rockies, score more runs than the Rockies, have a better pitcher ERA than the Rockies. Like, the Rockies are basically categorically the worst team in baseball in every significant measure.
Mm-hmm. And they can't hang their hat on we'll get to play at Coors Field. No, if we can just counteract how we play on the road with how we play at Coors Field, we'll be okay. No, that was always the thing you could hang your hat on of. Well, the Rockies will do good at home because they have the benefit of Coors Field. Well, there's 6 teams that have scored fewer runs than the Rockies have in home games. Rockies are 24th in baseball at 111. That's pretty much on par with the San Francisco Giants and the Milwaukee Brewers. That's kind of in the ballpark they're in,
Yeah.
rankings wise. So you can't hang your hat on, well, they'll hit at Coors Field, because they ain't doing that necessarily. They're not hitting for power. And we know how they play on the road, but they're in the bottom half of the league in offensive categories, home and the road. Just nothing is working, and it's going to make these next couple of months even more worse. No,
Yeah.
it doesn't feel like, well, they're going to get into June, and no, this doesn't feel like a team that can get on a hot streak and win 7 games in a row like they did last year. Remember when they did that in May, when they had that really good month of May, went on a run like that and won, played around 500 baseball or a little better last month or last year. Doesn't feel like this team is capable of doing anything close to that this season. It's a miracle if we win 2 games in a row.
Yeah, this is a team that there is literally nothing that can make a difference right now. And I know people are frustrated because, you have Warren Schaefer in the post game, saying, stick with us. We're getting better. And he's not wrong. He said, I say stick with us, and I think you're seeing progress if you're watching the games closely. And he's right. If you watch the games closely, if you watch every Rockies game like we do, you can see the incremental progress. But at the end of the day, there is literally nothing that can fix this team. There is no quick fix. There is no turning around this season. There is no righting the ship. Wins are essentially meaningless at this point of the season because the team is 41 games below 500.
Mm-hmm.
There is no bounce back. There is no rebound. No manager or coaching change, no change in the front office, no player transaction, nothing is going to make the Rockies not be bad. And it's not going to be this year, and it's probably not going to be over the next couple of years. We are at the ground floor of what needs to be an complete organizational overhaul from top to bottom.
Mm-hmm. But Evan, that will require actually acknowledging that you're terrible, and speaking of, you're the owner of the team at this point, acknowledging that and then doing something about it.
Yeah, and really the only person who's doing that is interim manager Warren Schaefer,
mm-hmm.
who repeatedly gets thrown under the bus by the media and by the fans because he is the public-facing face of the team. I mean, it's the same with Bud Black, but I feel bad for Schaefer because they fire Bud Black, and there is an unreasonable expectation that that's going to magically fix things. And while it was the right move, it still is the right move to have moved on from Bud Black. Like I said, there's no fix. There's no quick fix. There's no fix, period, for this team this year. And Warren Schaefer has correctly acknowledged, yes, this team is bad. Yes, we are losing ball games, but we are looking at learning and engaging and trying to figure things out, and hopefully you can see some incremental progress.
Yeah.
What we're not hearing this from is from Bill Schmidt, who gets up at the podium and says stuff like, oh, well, if we had Tyro Estrada and Ezekiel Tovar the whole season, then we would have been just fine.
Mm-hmm. Hey, we got to trust the process. I believe in a lot of these guys. You got to believe in what we're doing here. No. Update your resume, buddy.
When you are this phenomenally, fascinatingly bad, there is no believe in the system. Guys are bought in. And I've mentioned this before. It's like right before they fired Bud Black, Bill Schmidt goes, everybody's bought in. Everybody loves Bud Black. They believe in the message and what we're doing here.
Guys still show up and try hard.
But he says that everybody's bought in when Kyle Freeland had just been up on the podium on the verge of tears, begging fans to stick with the team and saying the Rockies are doing everything wrong. That's not buy-in.
Yeah.
That's not believing in the system. And if Bill Schmidt still has a job at the end of this season with this organization, there is no saving this team.
Yeah. It's just generations of of just internal hires, sticking to the guys staying in your own little circle, and now the Rockies are reaping the benefits of that. They've reaping what they've sowed, which is just an insular organization that refuses to adapt to the times, to spend wisely, mind you, not just spend money, but spend it wisely. And among all these other things, and refusing to acknowledge that, yeah, we're doing things wrong. We need some outside help.
It is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
This team is ridiculous.
And like you said, changes are, they're not going to be the quick fix, but they are also necessary at times. And that'll be a segue into our next segment when we come back here on Affected by Altitude as Rostermania returns. So get your wrestling belts out. We're heading back into the ring, Evan, here on Affected by Altitude. Welcome back here to Affected by Altitude. Skyler and Evan here with you. And, the month of May also saw a lot of change. We saw in the manager's seat, but especially as of late, within this last week, we saw a lot of change, roster shuffling, a lot of it to be expected. Maybe probably one very surprising move, but a necessary one that happened within there. So let's break it down here, Evan. We'll go down the whole thing here and highlight a couple of these. Specifically, probably middle infield and some of these outfielders. And then one of them we'll talk about more in our final segment. But earlier in the week, we had Orlando Arcia was randomly signed to a major league deal. Heard the inklings of it right around that beginning of that Cubs series. Heard, Orlando Arcia is going to sign with the Rockies. They're in final stages of an agreement. He had just been released by the Braves after a pretty rough season, rough couple of seasons, ever since his 2023 All-Star campaign. Rockies bring in a veteran guy. Okay. He does whatever. Did hit a home run today, like Evan mentioned earlier, so good for him. But he can get Tyro Estrada back off the injured list. As a result of that, Adael Amador sent down to AAA. We talked about him quite a bit last week, so you can check out that episode. And then Nick Martini, veteran outfielder, designated for assignment. He's gone. Sam Hilliard, his contract selected. He's back with the big league team. He also hit a home run shortly after coming up. Keston Hira was selected. Aaron Schunk was designated for assignment. To add Keston Hira, Michael Toglia was optioned. That's a big one. That we'll touch on that more later. And then we've also got Angel Chivilli was optioned. We haven't touched on it a ton, but Scott Alexander was released within these last couple weeks. A lot of change with that bullpen, Evan, and with the roster in general. But let's start with that middle infield. Orlando Arcia, Tyro Estrada, back in action here with the Rockies. Evan, you were pretty confused, as was everybody else, with the signing of Orlando Arcia.
I mean, I still am, honestly. Arcia has never really been a plus player. He's a solid defender who's never really been that good a hitter. Had a really good 2023 with the Atlanta Braves, but this season and last season hadn't really done much. He's designated for assignment so that Ronald Acuna Jr. can come off of the injured list and ends up becoming a free agent. The Rockies swoop in and pick him up on a major league deal. He apparently turned down minor league deals with the Yankees and who else?
The Mets.
Yankees and the Mets. And there's really not a lot of great justification for bringing in Orlando Arcia on a major league deal. The guess is that it's your classic Rockies bargain basement signing of he's essentially playing for free. He's playing on the vet minimum with the Atlanta Braves paying for his contract this season. and you can see if you can build up some trade value in him and then trade him at the deadline.
That, and they wanted to work on their bench. I guess that's kind of been the messaging too, is they wanted more veteran presence on the bench because Aaron Shunks, some of those guys just weren't doing. You're not getting much from your bench, and so they just kind of go through and let's overhaul this bench with these random veteran infielder players now. And Arcia, he brings that winning experience that he had with the Braves. He brings that to the Rockies. That's going to help us. And you're like,
and it's still a strange move because, shortstop is essentially locked down, and Arcia is primarily a shortstop. He can play second. He's played a little bit of outfield, but 90-something% of all of his innings as a big league player have been at shortstop. He can't play third. He can't really play third base. He can't do much but play shortstop and second base. And you just brought back Thairo Estrada from the injured list, who's going to be your primary second baseman. And shortstop is locked down because you're not going to bench Ezequiel Tovar for this guy. It's just, it's another one of those, the Rockies are doubling up on these moves. It's like when we were questioning, it's like, okay, I get signing Kyle Farmer or Thairo Estrada, but why both? It's the same kind of thing to me.
Yeah, and Arcia, you're gonna get what you can out of him. It's like we said before, nothing is gonna right the ship for this team. You can hope for the guy to come and bring some sort of spark somehow, but you're a little more confident in that if he had been hitting 300 and doing well with the Braves, but he was essentially a bench player there because Nick Allen took his spot at shortstop. You got Ozzie Albies at second. Okay, Arcia hasn't done much offensively off the bench. What's the confidence he can come and have an impact offensively with the Rockies? It's like you're saying, it's just another bargain bin. Let's get a guy because we can of this veteran guy. He'll help us. Yeah. Okay, whatever at this point. But
yeah, it's why.
Yeah, it's why, when you got Spilly, Ryan Spilborg's like, I don't understand this. That's where we're all at with the Rockies, and some of these sometimes feel like desperation moves. A signing like that of Bill Schmidt, I got to bring in somebody. I got to do something.
Yeah.
Well, let's go get Arcia. They reached out quickly. As soon as he was released, boom, they're in there saying, hey, we want you.
It seems like a Bill Schmidt trying to save his job kind of move, but at the same time, it's the kind of move that Bill Schmidt is known for, has been known for over all of these losing seasons with him as the general manager, is the bargain basement veteran that maybe you can flip at the deadline. And his other bargain basement veteran, Scott Alexander, they DFA'd him because he was so bad, and he's just kind of vanished.
Yeah, well, and it was like, well, we don't really need him because we're not getting many save situations, and he was fine on the road, not so good at Coors Field. But I don't know. I'm gonna bring in this veteran. That's what we need. Oh, never mind. You can tell it's him trying to be a savvy, scout background. Oh, I'm gonna find this value where nobody else has found it.
He's looking at those stat sheets.
Yeah, he's got those stat sheets that he's pulled up on Netscape on his 98 Windows computer.
Hey, Netscape Navigator used to be the hot browser. Or do you remember the MSN browser? Maybe Bill Schmidt uses that.
Oh yeah, MSN. I remember that. He's playing that between playing 3D space pinball on his computer.
Okay. In defense of that, 3D space pinball still rules.
But the point here, Evan, is that he's old and stuck in the past. It was good back then. Pinball would still be good, but everything else about those computers, no.
And that's the problem, is that the Rockies still operate as this incredibly outdated organization. And Bill Schmidt has shown that he is not a good general manager. that this is the kind of move that he's known for. Every season, it seems like there's one or two of these bargain basement veteran signings with the hopes of flipping them at deadline or giving an unwise contract extension to somebody that doesn't work out.
Yeah, or those veteran signings are just because we feel like that's what we need to help this young core of players.
We need that we need the veteranosity.
And so
we need the clubhouse presence.
Yeah. So RC is kind of the epitome of that, yet another one. But we talked about this a little bit over on our Purple Row playback stream watch along on Thursday when Tyro Estrada was it Thursday? No, it was Friday. Friday when Tyro Estrada made his Rockies debut, and Evan mentioned it before with Bill Schmidt of just Tyro Estrada has seemed to be hoisted up by his own petard and kind of presented as this is who we should have had. He would have saved us from where our record is right now. And we both kind of have laughed at that of like, what?
Bill Schmidt has repeatedly gone on record saying that if Estrada hadn't been hurt, then the Rockies would be better than they are now. That if Ezekiel Tovar hadn't been injured, that if Chris Bryant was healthy, that it's always the same. And that's been the same excuse over the last 3 seasons now. Well, if such and such hadn't been hurt, the Rockies would have been great. Okay, well, you need to start finding a way to be great without these guys, because unless he's a 29 wins above replacement player, there's no tangible difference made.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's like Tyro Estrada is a simple contact bat, good glove, guy that makes a lot of contact. That's it. Is that going to save this team? No. They've had these types of guys in the past. Jose Iglesias, for instance. It doesn't make a difference. One guy isn't going to save this team, and that's just the messaging that Schmidt has been trying to push forward with Estrada. And I don't think anybody's buying it. But no, I'm not biting on that. I see that worm wriggling. I ain't touching that.
Yeah, Tyro Estrada is a 4.7 career WAR player. His single season high is 2.2 in 2023 with the San Francisco Giants. And he is, for what it's worth, a big leaguer. But he's not a star or a superstar player.
He is a good like a lot of these guys, because the Rockies have basically constructed a roster that is just full of bench players, supplemental pieces, and they've just all crammed them onto the same roster, which oddly enough doesn't work for your position players a lot of the time when the majority of it is just guys that are probably better off the bench. But Tyro Estrada is that same mold of, okay, he is good supplemental piece for, to get on base for the stars to drive him in. But what does that piece become when there are no stars on the team? There are no guys to drive him in if he gets on base. And there's nobody on base for him to drive in.
Yeah, it's difficult to put into words. Like the Colorado Rockies, basically no one on this team except for Ezekiel Tovar and Ryan McMahon, maybe Jordan Beck, would be regular starters on a good big league team.
Mm-hmm.
None of them.
And even then, Ryan McMahon would probably enter into a platoon situation where, hey, you're sitting against lefties.
Yeah. And the Rockies right now, for their pitchers, have the second worst wins above replacement in the entire league. And for their position players, have the lowest wins above replacement. They are the only team in Major League Baseball where their position players are worth negative wins above replacement. Their position players are worth negative 4.7 WAR. That's really bad. And a bunch of their players are in the very bottom of the league when it comes to wins above replacement. Ariel Amador, Mickey Moniak, Michael Toglia, Sean Bouchard, Tyler Freeman, Jacob Stallings, Chris Bryant. they're all not playing to the degree of someone who you would want starting a baseball game for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's it ain't good.
Let's see here. I got the perfect soundbite for this. I got to stall for time while I look for it. There you go.
It stinks. It stinks. It stinks.
Yes, Mr.
It all
Everything stinks.
Would you like to know how many position players the Rockies have that are above 0 wins above replacement?
It's like 2, maybe 3.
There are 6 total, and
Wow.
only 1 who is worth more than 1 win above replacement. They are.
His glove is doing a lot of work.
Yeah, his glove is doing the heavy lifting. They are Orlando Arcia, Sam Hilliard, Hunter, two guys who have played 2 games with the Rockies so far this season, Hunter Goodman, Jordan Beck, Ezekiel Tovar, and Ryan McMahon. That's pretty bad.
Ooh. And there was that graphic where collectively the Rockies' entire roster is worth negative, F-WAR. Every other team is positive. The Rockies are negative.
And that's the thing is they're doing all of these roster shuffles. And I would argue some of them are the right move. Like I think optioning Ariel Amador, like we talked about last week, is the right move.
Yeah.
Like kudos to Warren Schaefer for giving him 2 solid weeks of starting basically every day to see where he is at and get an actual judgment. And the judgment is he is not ready. And that is okay. And now he's back in Albuquerque and he can keep working on what needs to be worked on. But the rest of the team is still bad, even if you make that move. Even if you bring back Tyler Estrada, if you sign Orlando Arcia, if you bring up Sam Hilliard, like I think DFAing Nick Martini was absolutely the right call. He had just not really contributed this season, and I would much rather have a dude 5 years his junior in Sam Hilliard, who is a better defender, who is faster, who is a much better option as a bench bat, as a bench DH, as a backup outfielder than Nick Martini was. But that move still doesn't make the Rockies demonstrably better.
Yeah. It's trying to find that fine balance of, and we've talked about that before, of, maybe Amador's better served. He's getting playing time at the big league level, but it's that fine balance of, okay, what's the benefits of AAA? Because there's no discernible difference between the Rockies and Albuquerque at the moment in terms of product on the field. There's definitely more exciting pieces down in AAA with the prospects. I don't know. It's weird, but yeah, there's those moves that make sense and need to happen. Nick Martini, hey, it was fun spring training, but as we've learned, do not put much stock into spring training numbers for the Colorado Rockies, because when teams start actually trying, it's not working out too well. But it goes down. Okay, Hilliard's back after doing his thing in Albuquerque. Maybe he can replicate what he did last season, but still.
And he's already off to a good start. He's got multiple base hits. He's got a home run. Great. Love me some Sam Hilliard. Will always support that guy. But, like we said, it doesn't fix the team.
Yeah. He's not the long-term answer. No, that's what it feels like with a lot of some of these moves, like adding Keston Hira. We need warm bodies to just get us through games this season, because the reinforcements that we drafted, we developed, they're not working out. Or they haven't worked out so far. It's not clicking. So we just need these warm bodies, these veteran guys who, cannon fodder. They're disposable. Can bring them up, get what we can out of them, and then cast them to the side when we can do something else.
Like Keston Hira, people were clamoring for the Rockies to bring him up because he's been killing it down in AAA. But that's his MO. He has always been pretty good in the minors, but then just does not do anything in the bigs outside of his, first 2 seasons with the Milwaukee Brewers. There is a reason why these guys are available. Like, that's the problem with bargain basement signings. There's a reason why no one else wanted to pay these guys.
Mm-hmm. But hey, come on down to the Rockies. You'll get your playing time. We've got first base. We've got second base. We need bench bats. I need
Please help.
Put it in H.
What country is this team from?
It's
It no longer exists, but take it from me. Take it for a test drive and you'll agree. Zagreb, oh gosh, what does he say? There's
3 hectares on this single tank of kerosene. But
Zagreb Ebnom Zlotykiev. And there's an article on the website Jalopnik that is I think it's from like 2017, 2018 that breaks down what that actually means. And it's like a mix of Bulgarian and some other Eastern European languages. It's like, take it for a test drive and you'll agree. The girls from Zagreb will think you're a goldsmith.
There you go. And that's the Rockies' pitch to all these bargain bin players.
Put it in H.
Put it in H. Yeah, just shuffling chairs, not really doing much. Like some of them are like just kind of needed just to bring up different fresh arms and whatnot, like an Angel Chivilli. Who hasn't been terrible. He's done everything asked for, but has had a few struggles as of late, and just maybe needed that breather to go down to the minors.
Yep. And we'll talk about it we'll talk about it more extensively after our next break. But the Michael Toglia move is probably the right move.
Yeah, which is a perfect segue as we now head into our third and final segment here on Affected by Altitude. Don't go anywhere. Don't you dare press that 15 forward skip. I guess you can if you want. We'll be back. We're back here on Affected by Altitude, rounding things out. Now, probably the biggest shocker out of this Rostermania, moving things around, was Michael Toglia, who, he had already seen his playing time kind of getting disrupted a little bit, Evan, where they held him out of the roster, out of the lineup, because they were trying to work on things, work on his approach and other things. That's okay. Gets in there. Now you see some hints of maybe that working out. Of course, has provided some pretty strong defense at first base. Set the franchise record for consecutive starts at first base earlier this season. After that last season, though, Evan, when he comes back in June, finishes out the season really strong with 21 home runs, a .233 average. Coming in, we're like, okay, this is the year. He's going to do it. This is our answer at first base. Struggles out of the gate and gets eventually optioned down to AAA as Keston Hiura gets called up. So him and Kyle Farmer will split time over at first base, it appears. But Toglia gets sent down, and probably one of the biggest disappointments coming into this season, or at this point in the season for the Rockies, of a single position player performance. It's probably Michael Toglia.
Yeah, and it's frustrating because, like you mentioned, Toglia started out the 2024 season really pretty badly.
Stinky.
And it gets optioned, comes back in June and kills it, where he's still striking out a decent amount, but less. But the big thing was he was drawing walks. He had one of the better walk rates in baseball over the remainder of the season. And so while his batting average wasn't that great at 233, he had an on-base percentage of 331, a slugging percentage of 469, hit 15 doubles, 4 triples, 21 home runs from June through October.
Pretty
and
good.
All that on top of stellar first base defense.
Not too shabby.
And he earns the opening role. He is your starting first baseman out of spring training. It's exactly what we all wanted to see. The problem is, second half 2024, Michael Toglia didn't show up this year. he's still a very good defender, and we recognize that every time we see someone else at first base, because we'll see a misplay or a failure to pick the ball or something like that and go, well, Michael Toglia probably makes that play. But the problem is he's been so bad at the plate. He's hitting 194, 266, 349. He does have 6 home runs through, in 54 games that he played this season. But then he leads the entire league in strikeouts and strikeout rate. And by WAR, he's one of the least valuable players in all of baseball. Like, not even his defense is helping him.
Yeah.
And like you said, it got to the
first
point.
Basemen defensively don't necessarily get a lot of love and recognition because you're catching the ball from somebody else. So the defense at first base is never going to be that stellar on paper, get that a lot of recognition. So it's not going to help your WAR very much.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, he recently got benched for a couple games by Warren Schaefer to try and work on his swing, work on his plate approach, and they brought him back, and ultimately it just didn't take. And we got a comment from Bill Schmidt after the optioning. He said, Mike had some strikeouts and we tried to be patient. We thought coming off of last season he was going to take a step forward. Ultimately, he took a step backward. So we have to do a little bit of a reset, send him back down to Albuquerque, hopefully make some adjustments and see where it goes. We want consistency. We want him to figure it out. I think there's a hitter in there. We've seen it at times, but not consistently. Mm-hmm. So, unfortunately, Bill Schmidt throwing Michael Toglia all the way under the bus there. But at the same time, he's not necessarily wrong.
Yeah. And you have to be realistic about it. And this has been the story of Michael Toglia, who was the presumed heir apparent at first base and struggled in the few times he was called up to the big leagues. Dating back to 2023, 22 now? Since 2022. His small cups of coffee in the big leagues, 22, 23, wasn't really showing at the plate. Then we see the breakout when he went down to AAA, and he comes back and just takes off really good the rest of the way. He's good, solid, doing everything that you expect of his hitting profile. 230 average, you'll take that if he's hitting 20 homers, if he's drawing walks, and keeping the strikeouts in check alongside those walks. He's still going to strike out 30% of the time. But taking that step back, where now he was overpowered by everything. A near 40% strikeout rate at time of getting optioned, that's not going to cut it. That is horrible. And he's not countering it with, he's going to strike out a ton, but he's hitting home runs. He's drawing those walks. He's 3 true outcomes. He's striking out a ton. It doesn't matter anyways, because he's not hitting the ball. He's not drawing the walks. It's just not working. And he still has a above league average, around league average walk rate this season at like 8.6% or something like that. But still, that 40% strikeout rate, it negates everything.
Yeah. Michael Toglia has just 18 walks this season, which, plenty of other players have only 18 walks, have under 20 walks. But you compare that to the strikeout rate, and it's just so much worse. It's like, look at some of these other players. Like Trey Turner only has 18 walks. He's also struck out 40 fewer times than Toglia. Paul Goldschmidt with the Yankees, 18 walks, only 35 strikeouts. Toglia leads the league in strikeouts. He's got 81 strikeouts. That's not good.
Yeah, you can't afford to have a guy doing that. And it's not only that, but they expected him, Evan, to be that power hitting, the power slugger in the middle of the lineup, heart of the order, who's going to drive in runs, hit home runs, be that second half Michael Toglia, which would have been great. Perfect 4-hole, 5-hole hitter. Problem is this season he wasn't doing that either. Home runs coming at a premium. With runners in scoring position, he had a .194 batting average. Men in scoring position. With just men on base, 179. with 28 strikeouts.
And one of the worst on base percentages among all qualified hitters.
Mm-hmm.
266. That puts him in squarely in 8th place for the worst on base percentage in the league. And half of these other guys make up for it with being a big bopper or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Or doing literally anything else. Or they're guys who have been optioned or DFA'd.
Mm-hmm. Part of me wonders, because the Rockies have been trying to work with him, you know, and I think Patrick Saunders, the Denver Post, has written about this several times, alluded to with the hitting, is that there's some players, some of the younger players, that are just too stubborn and won't listen to try and change anything, change mechanics, and other things. And I'm saying it's Michael Toglia, but you could see that he could be one of those guys. Maybe a resistance to changing a lot of things, which, yeah, you're not asking him to make wholesale changes, but there are things he needs to adjust, and that he adjusted and did last season. So he's shown the capability of doing it, but for some reason fell back into old habits this season and is just overmatched, overpowered, a big looping swing, and it's just not working out for him.
Yeah, and it makes it even more frustrating because it's first base, and it feels like it's always first base. You mentioned it on social media the other day, is that it's truly staggering how the Rockies have failed over the last 22 years to find a suitable first base replacement for Todd Helton. And no one is asking for another Hall of Famer at first base. Like, Todd Helton is a 1 in a million player. But the fact that they haven't been able to find a serviceable regular starting first baseman in over 10 years is getting a little ridiculous.
Yeah. From 2014 to 2025, they've used 19 different players at first base. The previous 20 years, it was 26. So they're almost going to reach the same amount in half the time. And it helps when you have a Hall of Famer first baseman. That's tough to replace. But how many guys have come through the system? Perhaps Ben Polson, he could be a guy. You've looked through the system. Okay, now this guy could be our first base. Ryan McMahon could be the first baseman of the future. Oh, never mind. He's going to play second base. Now he's over at third. They've cycled through, and it's just been a revolving door where nothing's worked. And you hope Toglia can go down and start mashing and find his way back, regain some confidence and regain approach and everything for him back down in AAA, where he has historically done so. Played very well in Albuquerque. Of course, then we have to take the PCL into account, and how much can we put stock into that, which is always hard. But it leaves this question for me, Evan, of what is the future of first base? If it's not Michael Toglia, who is it?
It's got to be Charlie Condon, who's recently started playing first base down in High A Spokane, but you don't know when he's going to be ready, and he's still working on finding his rhythm after missing a big chunk of time due to injury. It's frustrating because right now I feel like it's not just first base, though. As you could say, who is the future at this position everywhere?
Yeah.
Who's the future at first base if it's not Toglia? Who's the future at second if it's not Amador? Who's the future at third, period? Is it Kyle Karros?
It's you, the fan.
Who's the future at catcher if it's not Drew Romo? Who's the future in left if it's not Jordan Beck? Who's the future in center if it's not Bretton Doyle? Who's the future in right, period? Because so many different people are playing right field right now.
A lot of it feels like it's a smorgasbord of, well, the Rockies seem to pin their hopes of this one prospect. He's going to be the guy. And they just kind of focus on that for years and years instead of, it doesn't feel like there's a lot of options beyond that. So you could go through that. You could go through and pick each guy of like, yeah, he's the most likely.
What's funny is where it does feel like we know who the future is the rotation, is the pitching staff. Well, who's the future? Okay, it's Dolander, Palmquist, Sullivan, Gabriel
Well,
Hughes.
even then, it's like Palmquist. Maybe I don't know how good his stuff's going to play at the big league level long term.
See, I'm actually feeling pretty confident with Carson Palmquist right now, where it feels like after every start, he's learning something and making some changes. And he's still making some mistakes, but like his big thing right now that he is working on and he knows he needs to work on is keeping that fastball high, because he's had a couple times where he's been unable to get it all the way up in the strike zone. And so it sort of hangs in the middle and it gets clobbered. But you see his strikeout stuff picking up. You see him improving on a regular basis.
But I'm talking about like long term. Is he a Kyle Freeland length replacement, or is he? Well, he'll be good for 2 years, but then we need something else. And that's what it feels like with a lot of guys. With the Michael Toglia, to bring it back on our point of what we're talking about of what's a long term solution look like? Is it we got to get 3 years out of this prospect and then we got to find what's next? You look through that system and who's going to be, who would be a guy you'd want to extend and make sure, okay, he's going to be around for, be around him successful through his years of team control. And then we keep him beyond that.
Yeah.
It's hard to say with anybody.
And really, it's only been recently Ezekiel Tovar. Tovar is locked down. He is the shortstop of this team. And, Tovar, for the most part, is pulling his weight.
But even he still has a long way to go.
Exactly. That's the problem, is that there's this team. There's like going back to the point I made in the first segment here, is that we have to be on the ground floor of a complete organizational overhaul, a true, actual rebuild. And that's going to mean, with all of these players, is evaluating who's got a future, not only with this team, not only with this organization, but in the league as a whole. Because evaluating whether they have a future in the league as a whole is saying, okay, well, maybe they don't have a future here, but we could trade them or move on and get something back in return as a building block for our future. But you have so many guys where I don't know what other teams would do anything with them that would make them a starter, that would view them as that person is going to be a part of our future if he's not going to be a part of yours.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a dilly of a pickle, but it goes back to just the random mental thing. And perhaps the owner's son being the director of scouting isn't exactly working out as great as perhaps the team hopes. But it's just a whole organizational failure. And kind of round it back out on first base. I mentioned Charlie Condon, probably, but who knows how far off he is still. Your other options don't inspire a ton of hope of a long-term answer. Skyler Messenger, Aiden Longwell. Yeah, they could. Zach Koska, I think he's still in there.
He is.
But a couple of those, you're like, yeah, maybe.
Who I think of is Grant Levine, who was supposed to be this highly touted slugging prospect for the Rockies. He becomes a minor league free agent and couldn't even get a minor league deal. And now he is playing in Mexico. And it just makes me think of how many times do we see a player where the Rockies were high on this player and they're completely out of affiliated ball and playing somewhere else. Your Jonathan Dazas.
Yeah. So first base doesn't inspire a lot of hope. It's still their thinnest position, which I don't know. They must have been spoiled by, having Andres Galarraga and Todd Helton as your first two major, permanent big league fixtures at first base, and they've struggled to fill it since. I was looking at it, Evan, here of every player they've ever used at first base over their history. They've used 40. Oddly enough, Jordan Pacheco is ranked last in FWAR at negative 3.1. Sorry, Pachucky. Obviously, Todd Helton is first with WAR at 54.9 F WAR. Andres Galarraga follows him up with 13.4. Who's third?
Third in Rockies wins above replacement.
According to
Helton
FanGraphs.
Galarraga. It's got to be something wacky like CJ Crone.
It is CJ Crone at 3.7.
That is so bad. That is so bad.
Number
the guy
4
that was
is
here for just 2 years.
He was here for 3.
2.5.
And then fourth.
But you know what?
Is the first replacement for Todd Helton after his retirement.
Justin Morneau.
Justin Morneau at 2.8, rounding out top 5. I don't think you'll get this.
I don't know.
Guess. The first base for the Rockies, John Vander Wal.
See, my thing is I never think of John Vander Wal as a first baseman because he was always like the pinch hitter and stuff like that. But I do love me some John Vander Wal.
It's every player that has ever appeared at first base is this ranking. He had 455
You know what it makes
games.
me think of is so Andres Galarraga, right? Second best in terms of wins, in terms of value in franchise history at first base. But Andres Galarraga was almost out of the league before he came to the Rockies. And what happened is the Rockies and Don Baylor helped him learn and adjust and grow as a player. It's about player development even after you make your big league debut. And that's something that I've harped on again and again and again that the Rockies just failed to do with a lot of their players is develop them both in the minors and after they're out of the minors. Because I think overall, the Rockies have drafted fine. I really don't have a lot of issues with how they've drafted. It's how they then develop those draft picks that is the problem, and how they develop these players after they're up here. And it's really see that with. Go ahead.
Oh, you can go ahead.
But we've seen this year, especially with the pitching, where the night and day difference of being allowed to pitch to your strengths and experiment and try things out versus having to follow the Bud Black cookie cutter philosophy of everybody's got to throw their fastball down and then mix it up as you can. And that needs to happen with position players too, of development and trying and learning and fixing things that are broken.
And it's also a two-way street. Those players have to be willing. And I know position players, hitters, are a lot more stubborn when it comes to that type of stuff because they all have their hitting coach that they have in the off season, random Joe Schmo, their dad that they're going to go talk to, random coach they've had, which can be fine, but you still have to be malleable to what the big league coaches are telling you and perhaps trying.
And that's
and you experiment, like you said, experiment with things. Hey, it's not working. I'll go back to what I know.
Yeah, that's part of why we used to see so many weird batting stances back in the day. Is that they'd try something once or twice and go, "Well, this works for me," and now I'm going to hold the bat like an absolute weirdo.
Like Kyle Karros, remember we talked to him about that? And, hey, you just start doing it; it works. But real quick before we close out here, Evan, what do some of these names on the bottom half of the value? Let's see. Starting at number 29, we've got Matt Adams. At number 31, there's Joshua Fuentes. At number 34, there's Ian Desmond. At number 37, there's Daniel Murphy. At 38, there's Michael Toglia. At 39, there's Ilaris Montero. And I don't even see Chris Bryant on this list. Oh, that's qualified players. Hold on a second, Evan. We're going to see if I can get this beyond qualified. Oh, my goodness. Nope, they kept it at 40. I don't see Chris Bryant on this list. Either way, he fits in there somewhere. But Did you notice trend with some of those names and the years that they've played with this team?
I was also going to point out that most of those players, except for Toglia, were not originally first basemen.
Mm-hmm.
A whole bunch of those guys are guys that they put at first base, not first baseman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But
this is just...
golly gee jeepers, it sure does seem like Bud Black was the manager for all those guys.
Yeah, well, it's a rough go of it. I don't know why Chris Bryant's not showing up on this list, but oh well.
I mean, he's not a good first baseman either.
It's just been a rough go of it, and so we'll see what happens. Hopefully Toglia can figure things out and come back, but otherwise it's the Kyle Farmer, Keston Hira show until somebody else comes along. Orlando Arcia?
Put my cat at first base.
The big cat?
No. He is a small cat. I mean, he's big for a cat, but he is not the big cat.
Very well. Well, Evan, on that note, where can the folks find you?
You can find me over on purplerow.com writing the Monday Rock Piles. Also, please join us on Tuesdays for the weekly Pebble Report, the new and improved weekly Pebble Report. Really enjoying some of the feedback that I am getting from everybody on that, and just figuring out what to do with that piece every week has been really interesting. I would also love it if you came and found me on Blue Sky at evanlang27.bsky.social. Remember that you can find Rocky Mountain Rooftop on all of your favorite podcasting platforms of choice, be it Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio. Basically, if you can get podcasts on it, you can find us there. You can also find us on social media, basically all of your favorite social media platforms of choice, and on YouTube, where you can catch the video version of the show at Rocky Mountain Rooftop. That's at ROCKYMTN Rooftop.
And find me over on Twitter at Skyler Timmons, or on Blue Sky at S Timmons, TIMMINS 13.bsky.social. And then writing over Wednesday Rock Piles for Purple Row, typically, and then also working on stuff for Fans First Sports Network. That's FFSN.com, where you can find a lot of the podcasts in the Fans First Sports Network sphere. All kinds of sports, pretty much every sport. A lot of content over there outside of just the Rockies, but you can go check out ours and find the podcast there as well.
Why would you want to listen to non-Rockies content?
Yeah. What are you doing?
I told somebody the other day, because they were like, well, how do you know so much about the Rockies? And I'm like, because against my better judgment, I have essentially watched or listened to every single Colorado Rockies game over the last 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Some say too much. Others
Probably.
say way too much.
Nobody says not enough.
Uh-huh. But hey, that's what we're here for. So until next time, this has been Affected by Altitude. And be sure to go check out our Rooftop Mingles. Throw that in here really quickly. We just recently talked to Charlie Condon. That was part of, we put it in the last episode. There's the standalone. But yeah, go back and look at all those. And hopefully we'll have some others in the pipeline.
The food he misses the most from home. Not what you'd expect.
Pancakes.
It was not pancakes.
Oh.
I mean, you can get pancakes there, but you'll just have to watch the Rooftop Mingle to find out, won't you?
I wonder if he just enjoys the fights that happen there.
I mean, it's just part of the ambiance.
But until next time, I'm Skyler. That's Evan. This has been Affected by Altitude. Hit him with it.
Farewell!
This has been Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast with Rocky Mountain Rooftop, a proud affiliate of the Fans First Sports Network. Catch new episodes every Monday on wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Be sure to follow us on YouTube as well for video versions of the show.